Hello YouTube, this is DVD Review Studios here, and today we have a very sudden video in relation to a topic I thought would make some interesting discussion slash debate on the channel, and that is that co-creator of both Rick and Morty and Solar Opposites, Justin Roiland, has essentially just been fired from his role on Rick and Morty. And that's very interesting with him being a co-creator of the show. There's been no comment as to what's going to happen with Solar Opposites or any other show that he is currently involved with. But Adult Swim has made a public post stating that they have ended all association with Justin Roiland, but that Rick and Morty will continue and that Season 7 is still in production. I believe Season 7 is due to be released this year, likely around the summer, I would like to estimate. But with what is currently happening with Roiland, it's been a very interesting bit of news to follow, and there's been several articles that I'm going to show on screen that I think are definitely worth looking into if you are interested in this sort of thing. But Justin Roiland, who is obviously very much the star, voicing Rick and Morty, voicing Corvo in Solar Opposites, and as co-creator of both shows, has been charged with felony domestic violence in Orange County, California, in connection with an incident that occurred in 2020, which has been reported about here and there. A lot of the inner details are hush-hush, which is kind of interesting in my eyes, that so much detail is being kept under wraps, and that the only news outlet that I've found that have actually been able to really obtain any sort of juicy information is NBC News. I'm going to go through this article in particular from NBC News, which anything that I do reference, I will put links to down below in the description, so by all means you can read these at your own leisure if you are interested. But with regards to Roiland having been charged, he did appear in court as of late for a pre-trial hearing. Roiland has pleaded not guilty previously, and in a statement from one of Roiland's attorneys, they wrote that his client is innocent, that they expect the case will be dismissed, where he's quoted stating, "We look forward to clearing Justin's name and helping him move forward as swiftly as possible," which is from attorney T. Edward Wellborn. And NBC News, like I mentioned, seems to have the most info from what I have found browsing online in relation to what has occurred, where they obtained the criminal complaint in the case which charges Roiland with one felony count of domestic battery with corporal injury and one felony count of false imprisonment by menace, violence, fraud, and / or deceit, where NBC state that they are the first news outlet to publicly share this information. And this complaint is really bizarre with the fact that we don't know that much about it. The complaint states that the incident occurred on about January 19th, they're kind of unspecific there in this article, against an anonymous Jane Doe who was dating Roiland at the time. Looking at another article which seems to expand a little bit more information-wise on what occurred back in 2020, where a protective order was filed in October 2020 and documented, stating that Roiland is not to harass, threaten, or surveil the person named in the protective order, who is not really known as far as the individual goes, where Roiland cannot go within 100 feet of the person, and according to the order, which also ordered Roiland to turn in any firearms, supposedly, which that sounds a little bit, again, like they're trying to keep things on the down low. The order is going to last until October 2023, and it's not really known at the moment who submitted the request for this order. So it's interesting and sparks a lot of debate as to really what has occurred, since there is so little information in terms of detail as to what has actually happened with regards to the actions that Roiland has taken, who this individual is that is obviously stating what has occurred, and that's obviously why Roiland has been charged at this point. It's a fascinating story, which I feel is only going to get all the more interesting as things develop. We may not know any specific details about what has gone down, but in relation to the case that has unfolded, there are details as to what this seemingly contains, such as police body camera footage, police reports, abuse investigation reports, medical reports, and recordings of interviews, all of which have currently been withheld from the public under a protective order. Which is interesting, I feel, because Justin Roiland is such a high-ranking celebrity at this point, that gives a little bit of favour to him in particular, and that obviously anything in relation to the case is going to be kept under wraps until something official is put out there as to what is actually going to happen with him as a person sentencing-wise. Whether or not he will face prison time is unknown at this point. It's just developed into something with obviously relating to so many popular properties and currently well-known animated sitcoms in particular, such as obviously Rick and Morty, where Adult Swim have clearly stated what they personally feel about Roiland and how they are just going to carry on now without him. As for the future of these shows and really what's going to happen going forward, nobody really knows currently, but from what I have read online, such as this source in particular from The Hollywood Reporter, where they have investigated this and that Rick and Morty is set to continue with Roiland's voice roles being recast, which I find interesting because of how many characters he has performed on the show. Obviously, he voices Rick and Morty, of which there are so many people out there now that can do almost spot-on impressions of both Rick and Morty. I would highly recommend checking out this video from Vanity Fair, which was uploaded about 6 months ago, where Roiland, funnily enough, is critiquing people's impressions of him and his characters, such as Rick, Morty, Corvo, and how scarily accurate they are. And he even befriended someone through this particular situation where he is apparently, or was apparently, quite close with this person, and he was just testing the range as to what their Morty voice would be like. I would like to think that Adult Swim would be interested in appealing to fans and people that can do so many great impressions of these characters, where the voiceover seems to be relatively easy to an extent to replicate. I'd be very surprised if they could find somebody that could do both Rick and Morty to a T. From what I have seen, it seems to be either one or the other. I guess you never really know what the future may hold for a scenario such as this. It's a very unique scenario, to say the least, where recasting such iconic characters that have become a huge part of popular culture in the past 10 years is not going to be easy in terms of accepting somebody into the role, where people are now complaining that the show has gone down the toilet anyway, and that recasting the main roles is obviously going to add further distress to the fandom, and that people are going to be even more difficult when it comes to a show such as Rick and Morty, which has a very colourful fan base, shall we say, to put things politely. But looking into this optimistically, I would like to think that recasting a role such as Rick and Morty with the talent that is out there, that is undiscovered, could really be somebody's big break. If you look at the show Family Guy and how they recast Cleveland Brown, where Mike Henry stepped down from the role, they managed to find somebody that was doing flawless Cleveland Brown impressions on YouTube, and that was essentially his big break and his introduction into voice acting for something official such as Family Guy. So you never know really what the future may hold for something like this. Looking at other shows that Roiland is associated with, such as Solar Opposites, where he is a co-creator of the series, where he voices the main character Corvo, Roiland has had several projects ongoing with Hulu in particular, and it's going to be fascinating to see what their stance will be on him in particular. Whether or not he can actually continue to do any work at all in the animation industry is left to be decided. 20th Television Animation has yet to make any comment on this to my knowledge, and if they do, and things do transpire where shows such as Solar Opposites do get cancelled, I may make a follow-up video to this just discussing the fallout and obviously what has occurred since this video. But I thought this would make an interesting, debatable topic. If you have any thoughts on the situation, do you think this is a fair situation? Do you think that Rick and Morty continuing solely now under Dan Harmon, who, to be honest, I think is an excellent writer, but has some ideas where I personally feel he should be restrained in some ways, such as the god-awful incest-related episodes of Rick and Morty. I despise those with a passion. You can hear my rant about that in my Season 5 review. As for really what we can expect from the show, I don't think really the quality will change all that much. It could only really get worse going forward in my eyes. But that is going to be left to be decided and left to be seen with what happens with shows such as Solar Opposites and what the future of Rick and Morty will look like in the years to come. So by all means, if you have any thoughts on this situation, drop them in the comments down below. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave me a like, and for more content, be sure to subscribe.
Are you threatening me?